Well, this morning I wanted to use this opportunity to explain a few things. When you judge according to the eyes, and you look at this woman, you could say, "Well, she doesn't know that she shouldn't have that extra weight on her. She shouldn't." Well, you be careful because you may find yourself in my shoes. For you see, many times some of the illnesses that the Lord healed me of took me months in bed. And being months and months in bed as a young person, let alone as an older person, is a very difficult thing over the body. And so uh, when I wound up in open heart surgery, uh, I lost a lot of weight quickly, making my skin on my arms and stuff look like crepe paper. Uh, and everybody told me I looked like I was 12 years old. To me, I looked like an old hag. I did not like how I looked. And I was still steadily losing weight. And my cheekbones were sticking out. You could see my skull. And I said, I'm not going there. And I talked to the Lord about it. And he let me know that, at 70 years old, you need a little bit more weight on you. A lot of people think that uh, having a couple extra pounds is really hard on them, hard on their heart, hard. And for them, maybe that is true. But nobody can lay for months and months and months, and perhaps sometimes years in bed, unable to move her muscles, not able to do anything. I mean, when I had my heart trouble, I was living on deoxygenated blood, meaning there was not enough oxygen in my blood to get to my muscles. That made doing this near impossible. The pain was excruciating. That made crawling impossible. Moving around, getting up, impossible because the pain would be excruciating. Now, being allergic to probably almost every single um, painkiller known to man, I could only take a 2 Tylenol. If I took 3, I got very ill because of the allergy reaction to everything. So I lived literally in an excruciating pain for a lot of years. Whenever in 2012 I had that hole in my belly, it was because an operation that I had on my bowels, it would not close. And what it did is when the nurse they had me on a sponge back and vac, and when the nurse was cleaning it, she left a sponge in me, which infected it and caused it to swell black, blue, and purple and made me very ill. And and I couldn't do anything. And she hated Christians, is the only way I could tell it. So she made up something in her mind that she thought I was doing something I wasn't doing. Once again, being persecuted and lied on. And I was operated on by a doctor in another city, a big city. Well, first of all, the ER sent me to a gynecologist, and I told him, I said, I don't have ovaries. And they said, well, it's your ovaries. The doctor didn't get it all. It's falling out of you. Well, it wasn't. It was my bowels. And so the doctor, who was a famous gynecologist, operated on me and got very angry because he had to deal with bowels. And he cut out about 8 inches of my bowels. Now, how this happened to me, you could say whatever you want, judge me however you want, but I had gone into Mexico, and at my age, I was bending over for hours painting the playground for the orphanage. I was I was given those orders by unrighteous, unholy pastors who were working with a novice who was lying to them, and they believed every word he said. They still to this day believe him, all his lies. And what I did with that is, hey, I wouldn't defend myself. I knew better. God will take care of it. He will defend me. When it comes to someone lying on you, you got to depend on God. You got to zipper your mouth, no matter what they say to you, no matter what they do. When you know you have done nothing wrong, you know you have done right, and that person who is saying all these lies doesn't understand what he's doing. He was a novice. He had no understanding. He was listening to this unrighteous pastor. And so they were feeding off of one another, and they went to another group and they prayed against me. But during that time, my belly began to swell, and I was leaning forward for so many hours, and I was keeping up. I was 67 or 68, and I was keeping up with a 47-year-old man side by side. I worked all of them. I did everything they did. And that caused the squishing of my bowels, and it caused my bowels to grow together because I did this for a period of time that it took to do the job. Well, they spent all day praying so that they could go preach. And they used that as their excuse and whatever. They got out of work. And I did, as usual, all the menial work. And that was fine. I had no problems with that whatsoever. I I won't tell you I didn't have problems with the lies. I don't like lies. Nobody does. But I will tell you I learned a long time ago. Don't fight fire with fire. Don't fight on the devil's territory. Don't use his tools. Don't destroy. Don't talk about him because most people, they don't know what they're doing. They think they do. They think they understand. But if they judge according to the eyes, they're doing themselves a terrible thing. So every night, this young novice you could hear him out on the porch, and I guess he thought I couldn't hear him, and he was screaming, I don't know what I'm going to do. She said this. No, he didn't say said because he couldn't say anything. I didn't say it. But she's doing this and she's doing that. And she thinks this and she thinks that, which was very bad because you don't judge according to the eyes. You don't say she thinks because that's a judgment. You don't know what's in my heart. You're not God. And she's doing this and thinking that it is to his detriment. But I never made one move in that direction. So they are all up all night praying against me. And I mean against me. They've got the whole church praying against me. And when that happened, I fell fast asleep with no problems because my heart was pure and clean before God, and the Lord gave me peace. Now, I have other testimonies where you understand what direction this novice went into and what these pastors did with him, how they supported him simply because he was man. They felt sorry for him because the pastor, like he said, he was in love with him, which, you know. Anyway, so I wound up with this bowel condition, not knowing it, and it almost killed me. I almost died many times with this thing. And so this nurse, home care nurse, would come and take care of me. And the medicine I was supposed to take was supposed to have, once the pain started to go down, you were supposed to take a couple of ibuprofen. And then the medicine would be taken. That was my instructions from the doctor. Well, when she saw that, she said, you're mixing medications. And she called the doctor who was in another town, who was very famous. And she called him and she said, she is on drugs, mixing drugs. Now, mind you, I barely had any pain medication of any kind, so I couldn't be on drugs. And she said, and if you give her any pain medication, I'll have your hide. So I get rushed to the emergency room because I'm dying. That's the only way to put it. And so the ER doctor, he came to me and he said, look, This man, if you don't go back to him, he can sue us if we touch you. We can't operate on you. You need an operation, but we can't do it. And he would tell me every time he'd see me, he says, "You're my favorite patient." Okay. And he would, he was very kind and very good to me. But he said, "This is the way the law is, and we can't touch you." Well, the strength in my body, I was so weak that I could not go anywhere. I couldn't even sit up in a wheelchair. I had to go in a gurney to wherever I had to go run tests or whatever. And the weakness was so awful. And the infection grew and it made a hole, and the hole was about this big in my belly. That's how big it was. And people that saw it were shocked, because I did have a woman that came in and helped me to clean my blinds and everything so that my husband didn't have to try and do any of that stuff. Anyway, so they took me to SpongeVac people. And these SpongeVac people, I'm laying there in a gurney and I hear them talking. And they said, "Oh, wow, look at that. Do you see it? It's so infected. It's swirling inside of her." They didn't tell my doctors. They didn't report that. They didn't tell them what a desperate situation I was in. And the home care nurse, as rotten as anything, just kept coming in, kept coming in. And one day, I was very fortunate because I went for 4 days with that hole in my belly without any pain medication. Because once she did that, and I know she did, I wouldn't touch anything. I wouldn't take any kind of pain medication. And so one day it got so bad, for some miracle, another nurse came in, rushed me to the hospital, and they found out that I was blood transfusion anemic. And another doctor comes in on the site that I never met before. And he told me, he said, "I never dreamed you would live. That's how bad you were." He said, "Do you mind having a blood transfusion?" I said, "No." They put me on amiodarone drip, which is, if anybody in the medical field knows, that's a very bad drug to be on. Excuse me. And this is where I obtained one of the best doctors that I had ever known for heart that took care of me. And I think the reason why he was one of the best ones is because he recognized that this was beyond his power, that God was doing something. Every doctor, they came to that understanding. Well, after I got the blood transfusion, the doctor says, "Is there anything else I could do for you? We've got your heart under control. We have everything under control." And I looked down at that huge, and it was like swollen. This half of it was flat, and the other half was like this sticking out of me. And I went like this. And so he said, "I'll get you a surgeon tomorrow morning." And he got me a surgeon. And the man was a very nice, kind man. And he brought out in front of me and my husband an email. And he says, "This doctor says he gave you orders that you go up to this hospital." Well, I couldn't get there. I could not do anything else but be taken by ambulance. That was the only way I could go. And the people who were in control in that county for what do you call it, for infections, I asked him, "Can't you just, I'll go, but I can't get there because I can't ride in that truck. I can't do anything." And he said, "No, we don't do that stuff." Okay. I wasn't mad at him or angry. Uh, God inside of me doesn't think like that. So anyway, when when the doctor said, I read the email, my husband, he got up and went, "How dare he do that to my wife?" He said he wouldn't even see her. 6 weeks. He refused to see her. And then he's telling her, go back. And that surgeon looked at my husband and went like this with the email, just ripped it. And he turned around and he looked at me and he hugged me and he said, I'm going to operate on you tomorrow morning. And he looked at my husband and he almost cried and he said, you are her eyes. You have just saved her life. Oh, when you say a husband is worth his weight in gold and God can use him, he may not be doing what these preachers think he should be doing. He may not be doing what anybody else thinks, but he's got enough of God in him that he can hear the voice of God to really take care of me. That's what counts. You know, like God says, which one is justified? The one that says, well, I will go and won't go, or the one that says, I won't go and does go. So my husband was there every step of the way for every need I had. But yet, pastors would judge him and say, that man's going into the grave because he won't go to church with you. Well, I won't go to your church either. I don't think Jesus Christ is there either. But anyway, they said, you know, get rid of him. God will bring you another one. And they were telling this to the whole church at the time, that my husband was going to die. And at that time, I stood up and said, I know Satan has it planned for my husband to die, but I've got news for you. God tells me he's going to live. And they all got mad. They all got angry. I said, he's going to live. No, he's not the way you would think he should be. No, he doesn't do what you think he should do. But you see, you're not his judge. And one woman told me, she says, he would never put his shoes under my bed. And I looked at her and laughed and I said, that's because you don't know him. So anyway, they operated on me and it was phenomenal. I mean, the sponge vac had sealed completely closed. I could look at it and I could see this far away my skin, but I could see my insides that was sealed just like this, putting it together. Well, whatever. So I'm laying there and I'm going, after 4 months of agony, Lord, I'm going to be healed. I was so thrilled. And at that second, that doctor walked through the door, real upset, and takes his hand and sticks it in and opens it up right in front of me. And I'm watching him take his hand this deep and go like this in my belly and pull out a sponge this long and that wide. And he almost cried. And he said, I told my nurses you put 2 in, make sure you get 2 out. That sponge would have killed me in the condition I was in. So anyway, in like 2 weeks, I was healed from a problem after 4 months of agony. And I'm laying in the hospital and the heart doctor come in and said, you're doing so well, we're going to send you home tomorrow. The home care people, the woman come in and she was just such a gentle, kind woman. And she put her head down and she could not look at me. The infection people were there. They put their heads down. They could not look at me because they knew what every one of them that did to me and how they treated me. And she said to me, if you want another home care company, we will get you a good one. And I looked at her and I said, look, if you're worried and concerned about being sued, I won't do that. To prove to you that every one of you except this one foolish nurse did well with me. You were so kind and so comforting. I said, I want you to just send me a good nurse. And I said, if you send me a good nurse, all would be forgotten. And she just almost cried and she said, I knew you were going to do this. And so they sent me a good nurse, and in 2 weeks, boom, I was healed. It was unbelievable. And infectious people, all those people, they couldn't do enough. They were all actually afraid of being sued. But I don't do those things. I don't make money like that. I don't need it. Like I told you, I don't need your money. I don't need money so bad that I would harm and hurt somebody else. I even told the woman, I said, look, she made a terrible mistake. I forgive her. And I says, and that's it. I don't want to hear anything more about it. And she said, unfortunately for her, we have to deal with her. I said, well, that's between you and her. It's not between me and her. And before God, I forgive her. So anyway, I'm saying all of this to explain to you. This wasn't the only bout with death that I had. I mean, and so many years of winding up flat on my back, terribly ill, unable to move around, caused me in my elderly age to put on a little bit of weight because you can't use your muscles. You can't. I used to be the kind of person that exercised. I couldn't. So now here comes preachers in their pride. Well, we eat this and we eat that and we do this and we do that. And we know you are not to be this weight. Fine. Me, my mind and heart was so filled in agony for so many months, so many times, not just one time, not just two times, so many times, that I finally got to a place where God had to come to me and say, Marion, you lost everything here and here. Knowing and abilities, I want to build you back up. So every morning you make it a habit to do something. Because see, everything around you is in chaos because you can't handle taking care of everything. You're too physically ill. You're weak. You're getting better. Like the first time when I had lupus, I mean, my legs were like 200, 500-pound weights. I had to drag them and I had to believe God that I was going to walk again. Well, now this one, oh my goodness, what I went through was terrible, which was nothing compared to the next one of open heart surgery. So there I am, boom, boom, boom. Three severe things that could have put me in the grave at any time, and doctors will testify to it. So anyway, now I take no medications of any kind. Blood thinner caused an allergy reaction that caused my eye to be split wide open and bleed. Well, it doesn't bleed anymore. And they tell me that my eyesight through this eye uh, is unbelievable because uh, most people see nothing but black. But I actually could see everything. I could see a little shadow here, but I see everything around it. So I can see through an eye I shouldn't see through. And they even told me, I mean, so I'm going through all these things and all these miracles with all these doctors, and they're watching all of this. So somebody comes along and says, well, you didn't do it this way. And look at you. You have jowls on you. You've got too much weight on you. And here's what God told me. He said, Marion, I don't want you real skinny. He says, because you need something, and the doctors told me this. Fortunately for you, you had enough weight on you that you didn't die. Because if you would have been real skinny, you had nothing to fight. So because of the fact that you had a little bit of weight, and this is no permission to say you should be fat. That you use that, that's your sin. That's not mine. I didn't say that to you. Just like I said, the Bible doesn't tell anybody ever to go kill somebody. You know, if you want to use my words and say I said that, have at it. You're in trouble. Because when you take the words of God and the truth and the Holy Spirit and you twist it like this to suit yourself, and you take a testimony and you twist it, oh, I wouldn't be in your shoes for any amount of money in the world, because you can find yourself in my condition In what I went through, you can find that happening in your life. You're walking along and you think everything is what I've heard the word and I don't know what it means, but copacetic. Everything's going to be all right. But God told me, the man that judges you or woman according to the eyes and according to what they hear, according to these things, which is they're not judging righteous judgment, is in danger of the same exact thing happening to them that happened to you. So when they look at you and they say, well, you should have this and you should have that, and this is why we don't believe you. This is I'm sorry, but I gotta laugh because God does not operate that way. That's you. God doesn't think that way. So I think it was 2007, I published a book, Knowing the Terror of the Lord. And in that book, I had just gone into a church. And I loved that church. I mean, I did. I loved all the people in it. Well, here as it turned out, I felt at home. I felt everything. As it turned out, that church was the worst thing for me. The pastor of that church was a terrible woman. She had just gotten the church down from her father, and she really believed that because she was in the past and her dad in the past were in the occult, that they had inside information and from Satan to be able to handle the spiritual world, which was a lie. So they had called in a prophet. Okay, he claimed to be a prophet, and I won't go into the details of what this man did because he was dead wrong. But he lied on me. He told them that I was angry with them because they wouldn't sell my book in church. I never asked them to. I never asked anybody to sell my book. But he made up his mind, and I could feel when his mind turned into this thinking, and when he was talking to me, it just went flip, and there was nothing I could do. It was like the man was over there, and I wanted to stop him from that thinking because he was wrong. So he goes and reports to them. He was terrified that I would be the prophet of that church. So he went and told them, well, she thinks that you this and you that, and thinks this and she thinks that. And they believed him. So what they did is they put out an email to the whole church, circle the rat wagon against Marianne Lynch. Now, I didn't do none of this stuff. But the little groups of people that she was sitting with, where the women gossiped. Oh, she made this one an evangelist. She did this with that one. And to this day, they sit in that church through the presbytery. Well, I'm telling you, some of those women are so filled with gossip and lies, I wouldn't be in their shoes. And I had called up the presbytery and said, these people are lying on me. Can you help me? You're ahead of them. And he said, oh no, that is not immoral enough for them to lose their license. I wasn't asking that. I was just asking them to help me straighten up the lies. Well, he didn't want any parts of that. Well, that was fine. I fasted for 3 days for these people. God told me what they were doing with the Holy Spirit in me was so tremendous. He said, don't have anything to do with talking to anybody about it, no matter who it is. And I didn't. And so when I went through all that, in that church, there were other people just lying on me that led into the other place where there were lies. And lies grow, you know? So anyway, here I am, unable to be like everybody else in every way, unable to do. I have not the abilities. And they say, well, if you had God, you, I'm going to say to you, if you had God, you would have a different change of heart and you would have more compassion on people who suffer. Because there are people out there that are suffering things that you never had. And I've got news for you. You're going to go down their path for judging them. You're going to suddenly, death is going to come upon you. severe illness, all the things that you used to judge them with is going to come upon you because you have this mindset that tells you that it must be according to this formula, a form of godliness, but you deny the power thereof. This doctrine that you have, that you protect, and you literally hate people for daring to talk against that doctrine. So you tell them, well, they're blaspheming the Holy Spirit when they touch it. Not so. The truth is the truth, and you can't make it what you want. So what I did when I went into this church, I put it in my book at the time I was writing it, how I loved this church. And I said very nice things about it. And until it took me 2 years to figure out what they were doing, it was nothing like what I thought. And by the time in 2 years, it broke my heart. And the Lord said, and I went to the Lord and I said, Lord, why? Were all these people able to do all these things? And they were all lies. Why? Why did I suffer all this in this church? And here's what he said to me, and this is a good thing for you to know. He said, Marion, you didn't ask me if I wanted you in that church. You came to me and told me, oh, I love this church. I want to stay forever. I love these pastors. I love this. Oh, God, this, I feel at home. I feel this. I feel that. He says, and it took you 2 years to find out the core of the church and how bad it was. And those pastors that you love, they were not of me. And he said, the next time you go into a church, ask me first. Ask me about it. Ask me what they're doing. Ask me if I want you there. I did not want you there. So that's why the enemy came in and just did all that he did. And the disobedience of, I knew better than to not ask God. But I was so thrilled I could find a church. Well, here's what God taught me from that day to this day. In those days, 20 years ago, how many years ago? I don't know, almost 20 years ago, you could go into a church and not get that much damage done to you. But nowadays, the doctrines are so bad. And during this critical hour, you are hanging on to things that are really bad for you. And it's not going to be a matter of 2 years. It's not going to be a matter. Things are going to happen to you because you submitted to something that is not of God. Not that I'm saying there are not any good churches, because they are. In my book, I even mentioned John Hagee. Even Jesus Christ told me to call the John Hagee ministry to be healed of fibromyalgia. Because when he touched me for the lupus, I was completely healed. But he, at that time, wanted me to know the value of the John Hagee ministry. And John Hagee was, in the book, it'll tell you that I used to listen to his tapes all the time. All the while I was sick, I was running preaching of the gospel. And my husband put it on the TV, and morning, noon, and night, I could hear the word. I could hear the truth. I could hear whatever. And so at that time, I don't know anything about John Hagee today. I just know at that time, and this is what I'm trying to say to you. There are people in the Bible that were going through things at a certain time. And they went, at this time, they went through this, at this time, they went through that. So along comes man, and he said, it's literal. You take it to the letter. It means this, 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 and this, and this, and this. When God tells you, don't take it to the letter. That you have to put it in context as to what time it was said. So Paul the Apostle is highly upset because women who were whores were coming in and jangling and doing all this stuff. So he said he suffered not a woman to preach or teach because they were coming in and taking over. And he was stopping that. But he also had holy women of God working with him in the gospel. So if you have any brains, you could understand that this time, this and that. And then when he talked about hair, does anybody have any brains that it's the fashion of the time? That during this time, uh, I can remember growing up that men's hair was cut real short and women's hair was a little bit longer or long. And that was fashion. So when he mentioned something, you take it literal. If you have short hair, you're going to hell. Like I said, there were a lot of women who were in a holiness church wearing their hair up in a bun and wearing their dresses up to here and wearing their sleeves up to here and down to the ankles and covered completely in every way, still committing adultery, still lying, still cheating, and yet they're serving and behind the pulpit. They're serving everywhere. Man has no wisdom. And God said it. Now, somebody comes along and says, she's denying the Bible. She is talking against the Bible. Well, during that time, God spoke to Paul plainly in every way during that time. And I did not deny that, and I don't deny it today. But I know that when God comes to a prophet and he speaks a certain thing, it is the flesh of the mind that either receives it or rejects it and filters it to what they want. So when the prophet speaks, a lot of times he's not speaking what God told him. He's speaking what he thinks God told him. And this is very true for the prophets of today. And and so I'm just explaining to some of you who have read my book as to, this stuff is written in that book about the prophets. And so these people were very gifted, and it's the Holy Spirit, and I deny it not. For the gift of prophetic utterance is a beautiful gift. But it is not the gift of being a prophet. A prophet is entirely different. Like my own pastor said, of all the people he ever met, and he's been all over the world, and he said, I know many prophetic people, many prophetic pastors. A fivefold ministry, when you need to be a prophet, you're a prophet. When you need to be an apostle in that office, you have that for that particular thing in that church. That's the fivefold ministry. But he said, you are the only person I ever met that is a prophet 24/7. Every bit of your life is God. Well, he was pretty close to me, him and his wife, so they understood that. They knew that. I live, think, and breathe like a prophet. And even this particular man, I talked to him about him being my pastor, and one day he came over, and him and his wife both were pastors. He came over and he said, "Oh, the devil's mad because he's so angry because a prophet and a pastor got together." And I looked at him and I said, "What?" And he repeated it. And I said, "You know what? I don't care what the devil does. I don't pay attention to his being angry. I don't have any thoughts of him that never comes to my brain." I said, "But the first thing you say, and when you come here, is you talk about the devil. You don't talk about God." And I said, "And that makes me think I didn't need a pastor. You need a prophet." Well, the humility of God hit him, the conviction. And he said, "You're so right. I know better than to do that. I give God all the glory." And he does. This is why I respect him and his wife so much. He said, "But I forgot." And I just smiled. Hey, it's taken care of. God took care of it. Because he realized what his mistake was. You do not ever give the devil glory for anything. In all of my illnesses, The devil had no part in that. You say, oh, yes, he did. He's the one that did this to you. He's the one that did that to you. He's the one that did. People, what they believe, their curses, their mouths, everything did a lot of stuff to me. Oh, oh, you're not telling the truth. Oh, yes, I am. The choices of those people fell upon me for fellowshipping with them, for being with them. Had I not been with them in agreement in believing they had God, they couldn't touch me. I'm not saying the devil didn't attack me. Sure he did. But to give him the glory that he has any part of me, he only can attack me to lie to me. He can't really do anything. And if I'm holding your hand, he can use you to hurt me. Listen to what I'm telling you. If I'm in fellowship with you and you're in secret working with Satan, he can use that to reach me. And that's what happened to me. It wasn't that the devil is quote and unquote so powerful. It wasn't that he could do everything and anything. Because in all honesty, when you're in prayer for something that's very important, if you don't utter it out of your mouth, he don't know what you're talking about or doing. Because you see, he's not God. He can't see and hear, and he can't see and hear. He has instincts, just the way anybody does, to judge according to the eyes. This is why God hates it. Because he does exactly what you people do. You look at something and you judge it according to the eyes. You are in one accord with him. You look at it and you think, oh, she should have had this. She should have done this. She should have done. So you're making judgment on an innocent person that is walking and talking with God, and you're going to pay for it. You're going to have problems with God and go, oh, why am I in this condition? What happened to me? It has to be the devil did this to me, and the devil, give him all the glory you want. That's what you're doing. You're glorifying him that he can come and just take complete advantage of you, your life, your children, everything. He can just rip and tear and do whatever he wants, even though you belong to Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ to you is powerless. He can't do anything because the devil is in control. And so you go and you confess it every day. Oh, the devil put me down and he made me sick and he did this and he did that. He's got my husband against me. He's got my sister against me. He's got my wife against me. He's been working overtime. He's been doing this and Where is Jesus Christ? Where is a confession for God being your Lord and Savior? Where? Where is it that when you're suffering and you're going through something physical, where is your mouth saying, God healed me, God delivered me, and the devil has no power? Where is that? Where do you? Oh, many pastors, they don't do that. They'll, from behind the pulpit, they'll say, the devil's going to take over you. If you don't do this, the devil's going to do this, and have at it. Have at it. You want to take a message that comes from God for your benefit, to help you climb out of these awful things, and you want to take that from God, have at it. That's great. Change your whole life. Change your thinking. Allow God to work with you and leave the devil out of the situation, because I'll tell you why. From the time you give your life to Jesus Christ, from that moment on, the devil goes like this. He knows he has to back off, but you invite him. You talk about him. You talk about what he's done. You talk about what he could do. You glorify him. You talk about him. Oh, he's got my child. He's doing this with my child. And you get into the mix of it and you pay attention to every bit of it and you feed it. Oh, he's got this nation. Look at it. And they're all doing it. Look what they're doing in the nation. They're doing this and they're doing that. And look, they do this in the schools. Where is the glorification of Jesus Christ? Why aren't you standing there saying, they're not going to get away with this. Jesus Christ is Lord. They're not going to take my child. Jesus Christ is Lord. When I stand up to them and I talk to them and I rebuke them and say, you will not do this, for God will not tolerate it. But you don't do that. You testify for Satan. Your mouth testifies for him everywhere you go. And even in some of the comments saying people, well, the devil's, he's got me under attack and he's got me. Well, listen to what I'm telling you. If you didn't pay attention to him, you wouldn't be in that condition. So you got to go before God and you've got to ask God to forgive you for focusing your eyes on what the devil can do to glorify him. Where did you get that way? Hollywood. How did you get? The TV. How did you get that way? The preacher that glorifies Satan from behind the pulpit. That's where you got it. You got that the devil can, the devil will, the devil has, the devil does, the devil, you got it. So then you have to study the devil to find out how to defy the devil, how to stop the devil. And someone comes along and tells you the truth, how to defy him. Oh, she's not of God. She didn't do this right, and she didn't do that right. She's not. But I've got all the answers because Jesus Christ gave them to me. But never mind that. You're going to have it your way. You're going to do it your way. Why? I'm a pastor of a church. Who in the world does she think she is? I went to school to study this, and I went and studied that, and I did. Oh, that's all your knowledge. But if you read Peter, it says, add to your knowledge virtue. And so much more after that. Virtue. What is virtue? Jesus Christ had it enough that the woman that touched his garment, virtue went out of him, and I have to apologize for the word flew, but virtue went out of him, so much so he felt it. Who touched me? So that woman had to be looking for more than a healing for her issue of blood. She had to be looking to be like Jesus in order for her to be so powerful in drawing him to her. Because the disciples says, we're being thronged. What's the matter with you? But he knew somebody touched him. And that's why I preach and teach. Do you touch Jesus? Oh, we know that Jesus touches people. But do you touch his heart enough to listen to you? How do you do it? How do you get God's attention? So simple. It's in the Word. You get God's attention by seeking his virtue. And his virtue is Jesus Christ, the moral excellence of Jesus Christ. But oh no, that's not true. He got married. He gave into the flesh and wanted to sleep with a woman. I can prove it in the Word. I laugh because God is laughing at you. He is laughing at the foolishness and the ignorance that you can be this high in your church. You could be that high. And they all, look at this doctrine. He has proved that Jesus Christ lusted after a woman enough to want to marry her so he could sleep with her. You don't see it. You don't see it. Thousands of people, women, follow this guy, telling him, I can prove in the Word that you have no business thinking that you have a relationship with Jesus Christ because you're a woman. You're less than a man. Oh, the foolishness of women that follow this guy. And I have to ask, hey, is it because you like him? Is it his person? What is it? Is it your need to worship a man? What? What makes you believe a person more than you would believe the relationship that you had for years with God? That you give that up? Oh, he showed me in the Word. Well, don't you realize anybody can manipulate the Word and make it into any formula they want and cause you to see it their way by taking it out of context? Don't you know that? Like I said, it's written in the Bible that there are people who are going to have to deny Christ and lose their head. But these women are so foolish, they don't have to lose their head. They just, this wind of doctrine, that wind of doctrine, this, oh yes, we know Jesus got married. He did. And all the, he said, pick up your cross. He tells you, teaches, deny the flesh and follow me. He denied the flesh. Ah, but you know better. Well, because you're a man of God and you sleep with your wife. And because you are a man of God, you take God's image and you pull it down and make his image like you, the creature. And you still don't see that you are guilty of the sin that is written about holding the truth in unrighteousness, about doing and taking the creature and making him the creator like the creature. That's what you're doing. But oh no, not you. You're not. Hey, I've got the support of my whole church, my pastor. Oh my goodness. Oh, foolish Galatians. Who has bewitched you that you should not obey the truth? Now, here's a scripture that ought to knock your socks off. In John, it says, if a person does not have the doctrine of Jesus Christ, and you say, what is that? Jesus has come in the flesh. Okay. If you don't have that, and they knock on your door, don't let them enter into your home. Don't wish them Godspeed, lest you become partaker of their evil deeds. Well, in the old days, they looked at that and said, well, Jesus did walk on the earth in the flesh. But Jesus has come in the flesh when you invited him in. If you usher the old man out, if you cleans out this and clean out this and make room for him, because he is not going to share the throne of your heart with the devil and the flesh and the world. He's not going to do it. So when you need him, you have to run to this pastor. You have to run to that one. You have to run to everybody else because you won't let him in for yourself. And you think you get this healing, you get this deliverance, and you think that it's going to go. And you're going to need another one, and another one. And maybe one day nobody else is going to be around. Maybe one day God is going to allow you to be in a situation there'll be nobody to pray for you, nobody to. I've been in that situation. I know what I'm talking about. Nobody to help you at all. But yet, oh, my pastor is so wonderful. Oh, she does this and she does that. Never mind, she had a marriage and she could have worked with that soul, but she just couldn't put up with it. She couldn't tolerate it. She was above that. So she changes husbands like you change coats. Because the Bible says that if you can't get along with him, leave him and don't get married. There's a reason for that. And I said it. And I said it in my book. You cut off your right arm. You can put an artificial one there, but it'll never be the same. And you're going to wind up in a condition that when you get into heaven and you have that arm cut off, God's going to look at you like, what did you do? I have been very blessed. Nobody could have ever had not just with my husband, with other men, harder hearts, filled with rebellion and everything imaginable. And I'm telling you, I begged God, God, this is so hard for me. Lord, please, please, give me one room apartment. Let me live by myself. And I would hear this clear, beautiful voice say, Marion, don't leave him. One day you will thank me. And the harshness of it and everything else. And I'd go, okay, this is your will. I will find peace. I will find contentment. I will find joy. I will find everything because you're leading me. He did that with me whenever he healed my husband of alcoholism, which is going to be in 2025. It's going to be 50 years. And he told me the day is going to come where you're going to thank me. And that day has been here. I mean, when I got out of open heart surgery and he sat there and he took my list, I was so ill. I could not do anything. I couldn't keep track of my medication. I would have had to pay somebody. And he sat there and he read all my medication. He timed it all. He made sure everything was done for me. He helped me in every way. He fed me. He did everything. That man was worth his weight in gold. To this day, I have had women tell me, oh, I wish to God my husband was like that. Because if he walks by the room and he hears one moan, he'll go, are you all right? Are you okay? That's how closely he watches to take care of me. He will do everything to make sure if I'm lifting something heavy or doing something, no, I'll take care of that. Don't do that. I'll take care of it. But I'm strong, Bob. I can do it. No, I'll do it. And if it has to reach, no, I'll take care of that. I'll do it. No, you just, I'll take care of that. I'll do it. I need a doctor's appointment. He takes care of me every single step of the way. And you're going to tell me because he doesn't go to your church, he's going to hell. Well, my husband knows Jesus Christ. Because if he didn't, he could never hear his voice to love on me and take care of me. When I need it, he's there, just like the Lord is. Well, he doesn't confess before the whole church. You confess with your mouth what you believe in your heart, and thou shalt be saved. So you stand up before everybody and make a confession, I belong to Jesus Christ. Well, you know what? My husband hears the gospel every day, all day long. He hears more preaching. He hears the Bible going constantly in hearing on the internet. He hears all of this, and you're going to tell me he has no Jesus Christ in him. You're going to tell me he doesn't have a relationship with Jesus Christ because he doesn't belong to your church. He does not listen to you. He does not believe in your teaching of buying and selling the gospel. He knows you're a shyster and you don't like it. So you curse him in the hopes that my marriage will go down to prove that you're right. So you sit and you prophesy against someone like me, and you prophesy against him, figuring that prophecy is going to work evil on me. Clap your hands. Have at it. Have at it. Because I'm telling you, you cannot pull God down. You cannot deliver him up to Satan. You cannot diminish him. You cannot stop him. And you can't take him out of the air and make him what you want. And I'm laughing at the enemy that has a hold of your mind and heart to make you think that you can. Oh, this is a very joyful message. So I've explained several things about the book. It was written in a time that the false doctrine and the lies and the pastors were not working that much evil, but they are now. And there's in the area, I mean, I went to so many different cities and moved to so many places in most of the communities that all the pastors stuck together. Now, this one right here that I'm at, from what I'm seeing, the product of people who belong to a certain church, oh my goodness, they really live what they believe. So I know the truth has to be being spoken of. And that is a wonderful thing because I have true fellowship with some that would never do your works, never think your way. Oh, this time, because I prayed and I asked God where to go, He sent me right here. And what the first person I come in contact with is someone who thinks and feels just like me in the gospel.